So welcome back to day one of the Music Matters Academy. We just heard from Rob and Jason about the exciting world of NFTs and cryptocurrency in the music industry. And now we're going to go straight into artificial intelligence, AI, in music. And we have one of the regions, if not the world's leading authorities on the subject. So Music Matters Academy, drum roll, please meet Hazel Savage. Hazel, come in, please.
Hello there, Jasper. How are you?
I'm very, very good, Hazel. Now, I'm going to ask you the first question here.
Sure thing.
Who are you? Where are you? And most importantly, what do you tell your friends you do for a living?
All great questions, and I assume you already know who I am, Jasper. So it's a little bit more for the benefit of the audience. I'll imagine that's how I'm answering the question.
Don't let on.
So hi everyone, my name is Hazel Savage. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Musiio, which is an artificial intelligence company for the music industry. I'm currently based in Singapore, so that's where I'm sat right now. I know you can't quite see the MBS or the Merlion behind me, but take my word for it, I am in Singapore. And I've been working in the music industry for about 15 years. Clearly, I am from the UK. For anyone who sort of picked up on the accent, this is definitely a British accent, but I am based in Singapore. And what do I tell my friends that I do? It depends on the friend. Right. And it depends on the circumstances. I often just tell people that I'm in AI for music, and that will just cut the conversation dead for a good 90% of people who are kind of like, right, it's computers, tech, we got it, nice one, move on. But then, it also depends. I've been trying to update my mum on what it is I do for a living ever since I started at Shazam 15 years ago. And she didn't get it then. She doesn't get it now. She's not bothered. So, it really depends how much detail people want, because I can talk anyone's ear off, or happy to just, drop a one-liner and head straight to the bar.
So tell me, what do you do?
Okay.
What do you do for? Tell us about Musiio. Tell us what you do for a living.
Absolutely. So the way I like to describe it as well is, if you understand the purpose, why we would build such a company, why you would need this kind of technology. And I talk about the way that the industry's changed since I joined to where we are now. So actually, before I worked at Shazam, I used to work at HMV. For anyone old enough, that's a physical record store that used to sell CDs, cassettes, and vinyl. And I worked there. That was my part-time job while I was at university, and I went full-time when I left school. And I was the person there that was putting the CDs out on the shelf ready for sale on a Monday morning, because all music came out at the same day, same time every week. And on a busy week, there'd be 5 or 6 CD singles. On a quiet week, 2 or 3, and that was it. That was new music. And then when I compared that 15 years ago to where we are now, and you have companies like Spotify say we have 60,000 new songs a day released online, there's now more music released every day than used to come out in an entire year. And so that's exciting, but that's also the opportunity. I'm so glad that so many artists have the opportunity to create and release music. It's very seamless to sort of download an app to your phone and record yourself and create music. It's very seamless and affordable to upload that music via distributors. But it also means that there's so much more content out there. And how does it get discovered? And how do we playlist that kind of content? So really, Musiio is built to address those questions. If there's more music than can ever be manually processed, how do you know what you have? So our technology does things like telling you the genre of all these songs, the BPM, the key, whether it has a vocal, the quality level of the recording. We've also now branching into whether something is good. And I know also you were talking just previously about NFTs. We also have an AI that can pick the best 30 seconds of any song. So we're doing a lot of automation towards like Instagram stories and TikTok and YouTube shorts. But I'm also fascinated about the idea of if you could segment a song into composite parts and sell each of them as NFTs. These are the ways that the industry is growing and evolving. So essentially AI for large scale automation, where human manual processes are just no longer possible.
So where does Musiio end up? if that's a question.
Yeah, great question.
Sense?
Okay. So I'm going to tell you what I tell my investors, since I feel like this is very topical. Is I describe Musiio as 1/3 of $1 billion business, and really today to truly become a huge global entity in the music industry, I think you need three things. I think you need a pipeline of data. So legal access to an incredibly large volume of music. And there are lots of companies out there, DSPs or UGC platforms, that have this. But then once you have the data, you need the tech to be able to analyze what you have. So that's Musiio. We sit in the middle. And then once you know what's good, or you know what's popular, or you know what would go well in a playlist, you then need the ability to make money from that. So then that's the record label part. So I really think of this value chain, this holistic value chain, as something that is incredibly valuable. And, I remember maybe I was on a panel about a year ago, and I was saying something like, Sony Music used to have on their website, we do not accept unsolicited demos. And I was like, one of the biggest major labels in the world doesn't want to hear new music. Like, that's not the way to become a hugely successful continuous business. But then they acquired AWOL, I think just this year or last year, $430 million. They bought one of the best pipelines of data that exists globally. So I think even at that level, people are thinking about how you put this value chain together, how you're able to own the end-to-end process to be able to effectively, distribute and monetize music effectively. So Musiio, we're just the tech. We're just the tech that sits in the middle. 1/3 of $1 billion business. That's how I describe it.
Just the tech and 1/3 of $1 billion. That's I think you're underselling yourself and being quite modest about that as well. Tell us, how do you there's a lot of artists watching this session and joining us for the Academy. How do you work with artists, and are there any artists you can talk about that you work with already?
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to sort of direct interfacing with artists, technically on the business side, we are B2B. So we work as a tech company with the large music companies so that they can provide better artists services to artists. So we don't necessarily own those relationships directly, but you can never help. My background as a musician as well, you can never help but be in touch with artists. And whether that be, a few examples, we had a guest artist do a series of articles on our blog. There's a fantastic guy called Eric Hargrove in Singapore. He used to be the drummer for James Brown. He did a featured series on our blog all about funk, different types of funk, and he was analyzing the AI's interpretation of funk. So, we want to work with artists on that level. We want to know how musicians feel about our technology. And then even more recently, we did a really exciting promotion with their Vans, the footwear company. So their big office that they've got in China runs a Musicians Wanted competition every year. And that goes across all of the APAC territories, Australia, China, South Korea, Japan. And that competition is entirely back-ended by Musiio as well. So they get about 10,000 entrants every year. So again, helping our technology benefit artists, in the end game. So as I say, it's not often a direct relationship, but I'm always happy to be involved in these projects as well.
So from an AI perspective, from a Musiio perspective, or from a, like say you were a musician, or once a musician, always a musician, right? But yeah, what advice can you give new artists or their managers? Or their entourage? What advice can you give them when they're starting their careers?
Oh, great question. Although, I would take anything I say as an artist with a pinch of salt, because I don't think I'm very good. I didn't get anywhere with it, so I'm better on the business side. But I think one of the things that people are looking for these days they're looking for artists to be holistic in their approach to their careers and their livelihood. Of course, there's always going to be those who are great at creating viral content, and who are able to push themselves, further ahead. But if you look at artists like, I think about ones that I've become a fan of in recent years. I really like Cardi B. I really like Lil Nas X, and the approach those artists take to, music is a very important part of their career. but they're offering something more holistic as an artist that you want to be involved in. I'm obsessed with Cardi B's Instagram stories. I'm obsessed with her, her web store where she sells, tracksuits and jewelry and all kinds of other stuff. And, she's always doing collabs with the best artists, whether it's, Lizzo, she got Kylie Jenner in a video. I think, all of these things now make up the holistic career of an artist. And back when I was a young artist, anything that was other than playing and releasing music was considered selling out. And now if you're not selling out, it's probably because nobody asked.
Very, very good answer. So tell us, for the years that you've worked in music from HMV, and I remember CDs, and I remember the records before that. But anyway, that's my age. What rookie mistakes are you seeing, or have you seen from artists trying to get ahead? They've written a song. What next? What are the rookie errors?
I think one of the most recent rookie errors I saw is somebody just messaged me on LinkedIn asking for advice on how to get a record deal. And I feel like, I don't currently work at a label, so I'm probably not the best person to message, which is a little bit of a mistake. But also, I don't think it's the silver bullet. I don't think it doesn't work like it used to, where you were this unheard of artist, the label picked you up and they did everything and you became a hugely sort of successful artist. It's now about building your own community, owning your own community, and owning the data around that community. Also having control over your own songs, understanding, the rights and the monetization elements, and then also presenting yourself for sync opportunities and other opportunities sort of within the community. And there's actually, I'm a member of a bunch of Facebook groups that are really popular and positive. There's an Artist Managers Connect, there's a recorded music industry Facebook group, and there's always a lot of people willing to trade and share ideas. And rather than just wait for that one massive deal to land, and then you're going to be really famous or successful. It's all about building that holistic career. And so yeah, maybe, I absolutely have no issue with someone messaging me on LinkedIn asking me how to get a record deal. I can't help. But I also know that that's not really going to get them anywhere. So I hope to see people who, I love to see the hustle, but I like to see it directed in a way that's actually, going to benefit the artist.
So that's really fascinating, because we always. So I'm just writing notes. We always are telling artists to never stop selling. Yeah. And so I like this idea of always be hustling. Yeah. But in the right direction. So look, I just want to ask, in kind of, let's go back to AI world. What's really exciting for Hazel, for Musiio? What's really exciting right now?
There's a lot of exciting things. I think the things I'm most excited about, and I might have touched on them just in my introduction, is, we've been providing AI services to be able to tag music and search music. We've been doing that for about the last 3 years. But just this year, we built a new type of AI classifier that we call Hit Potential. And Hit Potential is an AI that's been trained on over 100,000 songs that have been successful in the last decade. And so what it can do is, as I say, again, there are no silver bullets. The AI can't tell you categorically that you will be a success, but it can give you a score out of 100 likelihood. And we're sort of able to see trends. If you analyze, say, the top 200 on Spotify, the average Hit Potential score is around 70. If you analyze the sort of new release on Spotify chart, the average Hit Potential score is around 50. So, it's not as I say, it's never a silver bullet. It's not this AI can categorically tell you whether you have a hit, but with a large enough amount of data, we can tell you if you've got a shot. And then obviously you still need everything else around it. But the ability to then be able to find great music, a little bit earlier than the competition is something I'm very excited about. Fantastic.
Well, let's go into the last question for you, and this is the humanization of Hazel. I know we've talked about artificial intelligence, but your real intelligence. it's a question I love asking a lot of speakers. If you were to bump into your 16-year-old self, your teenage self,
yeah,
what advice would you give?
That is a good one. Because when I was 16, I was still sort of hanging around. I just finished college. I was playing guitar. I probably still thought I was going to be a famous rock star. What advice? Difficult one. Actually, just a straight up piece of very useful advice. I would have told myself to pick a different university. I did politics at Newcastle, and Jesus, that was a boring, tedious 3 years of my life. And look, I don't regret having a degree at all. It's very helpful for when you need a visa to work in another country. But I feel like almost anything else would have been a slightly better call on my part. So there you go. There's one very practical piece of action I could take. Maybe I would have told 16-year-old Hazel to maybe invest in a little Bitcoin, something like that. But also, I would generally have said, I wouldn't have given too much away. I think the idea that I've gotten to where I am, probably based on the previous decisions I've made, means ideally that I wouldn't want to change too much. Oh, and maybe dump your current boyfriend. He's not good for you.
That's absolutely fantastic. Well, Hazel, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us at the Music Masters Academy. Some of the things we talked about: be more than just music. Understand the data, understand your rights. And the next session we have is with Gregor Pryde, a lawyer who's going to be talking about rights. Understand the opportunities, always be hustling, but in the right direction. Now look out for Musiio's hit potential. That sounds like an awesome piece of software. Avoid politics, but only as a degree. Invest in Bitcoin, dump your boyfriend. But at the end of that, AI clearly matters. And so Hazel, with that, thank you so much for joining us at the Music Matters Academy. Hopefully one day soon we will see you live in person at Music Matters. But for now, thank you for joining us from Singapore.
Thanks, Jasper.
And up next, we are going to go to London, where we have a very well-known media lawyer, Mr. Gregor Pryde. So welcome to the Music Matters Academy to Gregor Pryde. As Hazel mentioned, amongst many other things, she said that artists really need to understand their rights when it comes to music. And that's a huge, huge issue. And actually, we've got an entire module dedicated to music and entertainment law later on. But what better and how better to understand your rights than to ask a lawyer? And today we've got Reed Smith's Gregor Pryde joining us. So Gregor, where are you in the world right now today? Let's say a little bit about what you do for a living. What do you tell your mates you do for a living? And yeah, what's your background?
Well, thanks, Jasper. It's great to be here and to talk to you as always. I always enjoy it. I am the head of our entertainment and media division globally. I am currently based in London. What do I tell people I do for a living? It's an interesting one. It always depends on who it is. If it's a police officer, you definitely don't say you're a lawyer, that's for sure. If you're at a dinner party, it's always tricky to say you're a lawyer. I normally say I'm an advisor in the music industry. That's probably the most kind of benign way to express it, because someone's always going to have an opinion if you say you're a music lawyer.
What's your background? How did you get into law?
I always wanted to be a lawyer because, you know, I come from a fairly working class background, and it was always felt that if you're a lawyer, that was the route to, I guess, commercial success. But I started my career in the corporate world and in banking law, and only ended up in music law because I had a very good boss who said, you're clearly not interested in banking, but you're probably pretty interested in music. So I ended up working for a company owned by Sony and Warner in possibly the worst time to be involved in the music industry. So that was, you know, early 2000s when, you know, lots of companies were making money, but the music industry was being basically shoplifted by piracy.
Now, the Academy is all about helping artists and their managers and young music industry execs understand how the business works. But it's also always interesting to find out who works with who. And so do you work with any artists? And if so, who do you work with?
We do. We're very fortunate to work with some of the world's very biggest artists. We try our best not to name drop artist names unless they're in the public or it's in the public that we represent them. We are known to represent huge artists like Rihanna, like Mariah Carey. We represent artists across the full arc of their career. So an artist that we're working with quite a bit at the moment who's super exciting is Jacob Collier, who's won a number of Grammys, for example. We represent some artists who are on first, second, third stage of their career and still doing really well. Fatboy Slim at the moment is doing incredibly well. So, but we try and make sure that we have a roster that includes early stage artists and, global superstars.
So let's go straight into the crux of this. We're talking about rights and publishing.
Yeah.
So I'm an artist, clearly. I've written what I think is an amazing song, clearly.
Yeah.
What's next from a legal perspective? Do I own it? How do I know I own it? How do I protect it? Give us the full story on really how important publishing is and the various parts to it in less than 10 minutes.
Well, look, I'm so glad we're talking about publishing and not recording rights for a change. I mean, it's so important. And the reason it's important is because it can almost be an annuity for an artist if you've written a really good song. And there's this trend at the moment for artists to be selling their songs, as you will have seen in the press. And, you can't sell a song if you're not certain that you own it and you've looked after it and have been diligent about maintaining your rights in it. And that sounds like a really obvious thing, but in the middle of the creative process, our experience is that, making sure that they've properly articulated the rights that they own is not first and foremost in many songwriters' minds, particularly if they're writing with somebody else. But the core components of songwriting, I think, from a legal perspective, are to keep a record of things and keep an accurate record and be prepared to share that with your music publisher, with your collection society, and making sure that you have done all you can as a songwriter to register and include all the information relevant to your work. So that all sounds like a bunch of lawyer stuff. It's very basic. When you are writing a song, you have to, the good news is it's protected naturally in most countries by copyright law, simply by virtue of you creating it and creating some form of recording of that song. Now that can be for the old school among songwriters to write stuff down, and obviously not on a parchment and paper, but to make a recording of the lyrics and the notes. For people who write music in a different way, that means recording it digitally. But the most important thing, I think, is for your music publisher to be able to get all the information they need from you and anyone you've written the song with to be able to register that song with the collection societies and to be able to prove to anyone wanting to buy that song ultimately that you do own it.
So advice here is obviously to work with a publisher. Don't do it. Can you do it yourself? And if you can do it yourself, how do you do it yourself?
I think my strong advice to you is to work with a publisher if you're a songwriter. The publishing industry is incredibly complex and these days very sophisticated. And it's the oldest part of the music industry in many ways. And so as an early stage artist, if you can find a publisher who believes in you, who cares about the songs you're writing, who thinks they can be hits, who thinks they can make money from, look, publishers aren't benevolent creatures. They only want to work with you if they think they can make money from you. So it's almost an indicator that you're doing something right.
Well, it's a hugely exciting part of the business now. I mean, we're talking to Merck Mercuriadis later. His company is valued at over £2 billion for owning lots of catalogs. So, I mean, it used to be at Music Matters when we were all live in Singapore, if we did a session on publishing, it used to be that they would be in a smaller room for people in, a smaller group interested in publishing. Now it's like the hottest. Is it the hottest part of the music business?
I think in many ways it is. A large part of what our team does is help buy and sell catalog at a commercial industrial scale. And when you talk about £2 billion, frankly, that doesn't sound like a lot in the overall world of music publishing. I mean, we work with funds and with publishers who've grown their businesses to multi-billion-dollar enterprises. So, and there's a difference between owning a copyright and owning the right to administer it. And we can talk about that a bit if you want. But certainly, it is pretty sexy right now. Songs are, the way that copyrights are traded is known as or like many commodities, if you like. It's horrible to hear. Maybe perhaps creators don't want to hear that word commodities when they think about songs, but they're traded at a multiple. How much money can those songs earn? And the multiple at which copyrights are traded today is so much far in excess of what it was, say, 10 years ago. And the reason for that is because there's this massive proliferation of music digitally caused by the likes of Spotify and TikTok and YouTube and all these other companies, which sometimes get vilified among creators, but who really have driven the value of music around the world, because there's so much more ability for users to get music and to pay for it.
So I think we're going to be talking a lot about this later with the likes of Merck and Mary Megan Peer and David Shields and from the publishing side of the fence. Coming back to law and the legal side, we touched on how important publishing is now, and you even used the word sexy. But what are from the 101? What are the basic legal pillars around music publishing?
It's a great question, Jasper. I mean, copyright is the obvious pillar on which publishing is based, and you could divide that up if you like. If you're a songwriter, very famously, there was the Elton John songwriting combination with Bernie Taupin, and one of them wrote the music and the other one wrote the lyrics. They agreed the way that the songs would be split. So if four of you write a song together, you have what's known as a songwriting split. So you determine who owns which percentage of the song, which does seem a bit crazy when you think that, say a guitar solo may ineffably change a song. But nonetheless, that's how the industry works. You then have a publisher who helps you exploit that song predominantly through the way the song is copied. And these are kind of antiquated concepts in some ways in the digital world, but the way I think about it in very simple terms is the music publisher controls and helps you exploit copies and synchronizations of your song. And the collection society, or some people call them a PRO, traditionally helps you exploit the performance of your song. So the transmission, the streaming, the public performance in bars and restaurants, in what the Europeans might call discotheques.
I remember them.
Yeah, I was going to say, remember that.
You said that for me, didn't you? Does that cover roller discos as well? So you mentioned, I mean, we talk about performance rights. And I know there's been a lot of debate around. Do you remember when ringtones first came out, whether that was a live performance and stuff? But you mentioned maybe for another conversation at a roller disco one day.
Yeah, in a roller disco.
You mentioned synchronization. Now, synchronization, for those who are unaware, is, I mean, if I get this right, I'll probably get this completely wrong, but it's basically getting your song into other forms of media, right? So what is synchronization? How do I do it? How do I benefit from it? Should I be looking at it? It's a great song, by the way, amazing song.
Well, look, I mean, no doubt it's an absolute future hit. Absolutely, you should be looking at sync. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, sync was the great white hope of massive increases for music publisher revenues. Everybody wanted to get their song. I have a bit of a problem with the word sync because I often disagree with publishers about what sync is and what it isn't. Traditionally, sync means to take your music and to fixate it or synchronize it with some video, normally in the context of an advertisement or some other commercial enterprise or a film or a TV show. You know, some very famous movie examples, Top Gun's probably a very good one, where, you know, a song can be completely changed in the public eye because of the way that it's put together with visual images. And as a result, there's money involved. You know, we represent artists who get inbound sync requests all the time to a magnitude of, you know, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's the traditional sync industry. You find some commercial entity that wants to use your music and the publisher flogs that usage for you and you get a cut of it. What sync has come to mean, I think, has been, oh, there's a copy of your music made with video, which could include a copy of a live performance. Now that, in my view, is not a sync. It's just a copy because the recording is happening at the same time. But broadly, if you're a songwriter, if you're an early artist, getting your music synchronized can be a fantastic thing.
And we're going to be covering synchronization again later in the academy in later modules. So let's go back to the artist. And by the way, thank you for using lots of examples from the 80s, because then I completely understand it.
Sure,
what is what's a common, when it comes to law, when it comes to and specifically with publishing, what's a common rookie error that an artist may make?
Oh, I mean, almost undoubtedly, it is not looking after their business with the publishers and with the PROs, and that's, I'm talking more on the songwriting side here. You're not keeping that record, not being diligent, and also calling the people that are working for you to account. Your publisher, your PRO works for you. They're in business themselves, although PROs are typically non-profits. But you know, they're in business themselves. And look, as a lawyer, I'm bound to say this, but my God, make sure you're advised if you're going to sign anything. Too often we meet artists in the kind of second ramp of their career where they're really going to start doing stuff, and we kind of put our head in our hands and think, I wish you'd not signed that. So get some advice early on. Find a lawyer that's going to believe in your career in the same way a publisher would, because often that lawyer's going to, if you look at the massive artists, typically they're either really tight with their lawyer or they fire one every 2 years and get a new one. But those that are really tight with their lawyer, that relationship is really important.
So protect yourself.
Obviously,
protect yourself, right? What's really exciting? I mean, the music law and publishing. I mean, this is a subject that could go on for a very long time, and so we are going to be doing a whole music law module later. But what's really exciting in music publishing right now?
Well, I think what excites me is probably not going to excite the artist. I like complexity. I like problems. I like difficulties. I like people wanting to hit each other over the head. And that's how I make my money. I think what's really exciting if you're a songwriter is if you write a really amazing song, the possibilities for exploitation of that song down the line are almost limitless because of innovation in the creative process. And I am thinking about TikTok, I'm thinking about social media, I'm thinking about the way that people can engage with your song. And you're not going to be able to monetize every single instance of it. And nor should you in some ways, because there's a proliferation and a kind of knowledge and recognition of your song that can just go on and on and on. And because copyright lasts a long time, the ability for you to monetize that song again and again and again, if it's a good one, is more than it's ever been. And I get worried about artists and songwriters who give away those crown jewels too easily. They should really look at, hey, what's the longevity of this? Just because it's getting some traction now, what could happen with it in future? And that is your thing. That's only you created that, and you should hang on to it if you can.
Fantastic. So what a great way to end this session. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but talking about limitless opportunities. I've written some notes. So I hope you didn't think I was just looking away. But I think we've said we have touched the surface here. The advice here is never admit to being a lawyer, which I thought was great. You talked about publishing rights versus recording rights. So we haven't even gone near recording rights yet. But you did make it clear you've got to be diligent with your own rights. Register your work, record it, look at copyright law, work with publishers and collection societies. It's complex, it's sophisticated, it's exciting. And for the first time ever, someone's admitted to music publishing being sexy. We've talked about the commoditization of music. We talked about the pillars being copyright, music, lyrics, the split percentage. We talked about publishers exploiting copies and synchronization. We talked a lot about synchronization. We talked about collection societies looking at performance rights. We talked about synchronization, but you did say to get with a publisher, get advice from lawyers, whether they want to admit to being lawyers or not, and protect yourself. But yeah, this whole idea of limitless opportunities. Now, Bob Marley said, "Stand up for your rights." You said, "Articulate your rights." And so I think, Gregor Pryde, thank you so much for spending 20 minutes with us today. Clearly, publishing really matters. So thank you very much again for joining us from London this morning.
Thank you, Jasper.
Now, that's it for this session. Up next in a little bit, we have Cobalt's Simon Moore with an amazing songwriter called Nat Dunn, and they're going to talk about publishing from a creative perspective and look at the relationship between songwriter and publisher. And then later we have a lot of legends, Merck Mercuriadis, Mary Megan Peer, David Shields from YouTube. So please do go to the agenda, look at where the sessions are, and we'll see you right back here in a bit.